right, so I was watching a video and I saw someone bring up this tweet. So essentially, the day one patch does a lot. That said, the expectation for using a below min spec machine would be that the game is unplayable. All right, so I'm going to go and look into what exactly below minimum spec of this game is. It's going to be fun to double check and see what below minimum spec means. But first things first, let me actually go into Twitter and see if these are the actual takes. So I know this is Randy's actual Twitter account. Let me scroll when I'm playing Borderlands 4. I'm thinking about playing Borderlands 4. Every PC gamer must accept the reality of the relationship between their hardware and what the software they are running is doing. Hmm. Okay, so I'm guessing this tweet about the day one patch and below minimum specs, the game running at 55 to 60 is true. So I'm going to check out what the minimum specs are because it seems that optimization is actually a pretty big issue. So I'm going to see. Oh, I know a lot of you are dead set on playing at 4K with ultra settings and using 2 or 3 hours. Honestly, I do agree with that. I think if you're playing at 4K with ultra settings, everything maxed and complaining about the game's performance, maybe settings could be reduced. But let me check out the benchmarks, at least on like mid-range hardware. All right, now as I dive into this, just for clarity, I know there are a lot of hater posts, but I actually like Borderlands. I've done 44 hours on the pre-sequel. I've done 147 on Borderlands 2 and 323 in Borderlands 3. I love going playing through the campaign with my friends. I think Borderlands 2 was the peak of story when it comes to like storytelling villains. Borderlands 3 had the best combat in the series. Pre-sequel was actually quite fun as well. So I'm interested to play this game over Christmas with some friends. Back to the benchmarks. All right, so I got this screen grab from Hardware Unboxed. Playing this game, so at 1440p with TAA, you're getting an average. Let me just use the average frame rate, 60 frames per second at 1440p on a 9060 and 5060, which is not the worst experience ever. With medium settings, we're going to 50 and 46. High, okay, ultra settings. Let me ignore ultra settings because I mean, it's a stylized game, so it's not like ultra settings are going to make a big difference to how it looks. But let's say high. High, you're getting 4139. Huh. All right, so now let's look at the Borderlands minimum specs. So OS, Windows 10, Windows 11, understandable. The baseline minimum processor is an i7-9700. The Ryzen, honestly, it seems that when it comes to processors, it's being quite okay. Minimum 16 GB VRAM. I can respect that. In fact, I'm a big believer in 16 GB of VRAM as a bare minimum. I'll get into that in another video. You need to have at least a 2070. And then as far as recommended, you need at least a 3080 or an Intel Arc. I love how the A580 is in minimum, the B580 is in recommended. I have no idea how the Intel graphics cards naming schemes work. I'll need to look into that. And a 5700 XT for minimum spec. Not bad. All right, so this is a 7700 XT. Can't find any videos on a 5700 XT, and traveling around the world, which is pretty intense on the hard drive and GPU. You can see in the top left area that the GPU is at 99%. That means this is the best it can do, and it means we are not CPU limited. At least I think so. We are GPU limited, and it's getting like 50 to 60 FPS. So 55 ish FPS on a 7700 XT, eating up about 220 watts. As far as VRAM, it's eating about almost 10 GB, 9.7 GB. Really, 8 GB graphics cards are not the way. So yeah, okay, I understand this performance. Okay, but just for comparison and as a general sanity check, let's look at what the 700 XT does in a prettier game. So in Forbidden West, same thing, it's traveling around the world, 1440p. It's not fully maxed out. The GPU isn't fully oh, hold on, no. No, the GPU is fully maxed. Good. 99%. So the GPU is fully cranked. It's getting 66 FPS to load in and move around the open world. Okay, so this tells me that the low FPS, while it is a problem, or rather the lower FPS is a problem, but I think there is more to this. I think what people are struggling with isn't just FPS, it's probably the 1% lows causing the problem. So here we have 1% lows of 51 FPS, and here we have lows of, oh, 0.1 of 40, 1% lows of 59. Hmm, hmm. Okay, I totally understand. So the problem isn't just the FPS, because here, similar thing to Horizon, just moving through the open world, so that really pushes your HDD. Um, you can see the game is taking up 8 GB of normal RAM by itself, which is cool. Anyway, the problem is that the 1% lows are really low, and the frame rate itself is really low. One of the challenges with low FPS is just the math, is the dips. So, for example, let's say this is your FPS. It's there. It's not like the steadiest, but you're getting 45 or 50 FPS. Then boom, it goes down to 32. Then it comes back up. What you really feel as a bad experience is those little spikes. It's the 1% lows that make the gameplay feel like shit. Lol. And no sooner had I said that than another video came out, and Hardware Unboxed covered how it's been. First of all, it's gotten a patch, literally. It's got a patch, so performance is a bit better. Yeah, this game should easily be able to hit 120 FPS. If I remember correctly, one of the reasons why Borderlands 1 had the cartoony art style was to facilitate having an open world. So because the cell shading doesn't need as much lighting calculation, then after that, Borderlands 2 was honestly more of the same, just higher resolution, better textures, but still, you didn't need outstanding hardware to play Borderlands 2. But then, damn, Borderlands 3, it added to the art style. It looked amazing, but it was a bit more intensive. I think that all the character models got a lot more detail. The visual effects were also really ramped up, the lighting was ramped up. And after that, it did still run reasonably well on all hardware. You may need to adjust a couple of, graphic settings here and there. But Borderlands 3 was really okay. But it also came out during a time where, honestly, graphics cards were reasonably cheap. You didn't need to spend an arm and a leg to get something pretty solid. I mean, on a basic mid-range GPU, an RX 570, you could reliably get 60 FPS pretty solid in Borderlands 3. I mean, I remember hours and hours. I was rocking not an RTX. I think it was the last GTX card. I had the 1070 GT. It was basically the last GTX cards. And I had fun. I remember playing this game not feeling any frame dips at all. I mean, and granted, it really wasn't the most optimized game ever because actually, now that I think about it, there were a couple of dips, but I nothing that ruined the experience of playing Borderlands 3 for me personally. Yeah, so with all of that, I think Borderlands 4 still needs some work. It's something a lot of studios have been doing a lot more of recently. They just do not optimize. Or rather, the optimization they do is like the bare minimum. They don't go through like the real deep optimization, Ali. So yeah, hopefully by Christmas it will be sorted out and it will be perfectly smooth for most graphics cards and most CPUs, really. Honestly, though, I just think the whole man, honestly, I am learning. This is a lesson in being careful with engaging with your audience. I think if a game has legitimate performance issues, reaching out and talking to the people like this isn't really healthy. It's better to just let it be, work on optimizing and improve. So yeah, this is one of those things. I don't know, maybe it's the vibe of X. This is why I don't do social media at all, because he may be saying this, but I have no idea what people are sending to him, and people say the nastiest stuff on Twitter. It's one of those things. Anyway, game looks fun. Needs some optimization work.